Yo, what's up, guys? Welcome back to the Normally Podcast, the Normally All Podcast. I'm your host, Noel Bennett, and today, before we continue, be sure to hit that subscribe button and join the Normally Gang. Today, I got with me AJ SPIERINGSHOEK, SA Women's Indoor Head Coach. He's involved with the SA Field Hockey team as well. MCs on Supersport from now and then. The guy does Ironmans, he does marathons, he does triathlons. He's all over the place, but I mean, he does everything so well. We talk about the current SA Women's setup, we talk about the future, we talk about the 2025 World Cup, we talk about how he managed to get into cycling and swimming and running. We talk about how he blew his ACL. I mean, we talked about a lot. So hopefully you guys enjoy, and I'll see you guys on the other side. Welcome to the Normally Podcast, AJ.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. Looking forward to this.
So what do you do this morning? You ran, cycle, what, because we know you're quite an athlete. What do you do, 5 a.m. run, what, huh?
I did have a run this morning. The weather's pretty warm in Cape Town, so getting out early is vitally important. But yeah, just a little run this morning. I haven't obviously been training as much as I would have liked to, but still ticking off where I can because I've got a few races planned in 2024.
Ooh, lovely to hear that. Yeah, you're quite busy. You're a busy man right now because, I mean, you just came off a brilliant tournament. I mean, in Malaysia, the Tuanku Cup. Congratulations on that. Your first tournament as a head coach, how there must be and to walk away with the cup, there must be amazing, a pleasing effort.
Yeah, I'm very we were pleasantly surprised. I think we knew we had a team that could do well. The focus for that tournament was never to obviously you play to win, but the focus was not on winning. The focus was on trying to tick off a performance that we'd be happy with for every game, and then we can after the tournament say what of our performance, whether it went badly, whether it went positively, and we're just very lucky that the team responded to the tactical approach and the mental approach quite well. I think with our seven debutants in the side, I think a lot of them did realize that there were other players left at home and they needed to play for their position. So I think that's one of the benefits of the tournament. I mean, some of the results look very one-sided, but it wasn't. It was a hard week and a lot of nerves. I mean, our first game against Malaysia was pretty tough because we up against the home nation. First game of the tournament. They've been obviously looking forward to that match for a while, and our team's been looking forward to it. And I'm very happy with the way the team responded under very difficult and a really high pressure scenario. We came away with that win, and then all the other results, I think we played really well. The one game against Switzerland, we lost 6-2. There was a few decisions that didn't go away, but it wasn't a game that we were super focused on because at that point we had qualified for the final already. So we had tried a whole lot of new things in that game because we knew we could. And then we obviously laid it all on the line against Switzerland in that final.
And you walked away with a victory, which is great. I mean, there's that video that you guys posted where it was the showdown, and we just saw your reaction when it went in. It is magical. But you said, yeah, you took a risk. I mean, I would say it's sort of a new era, but I mean, you're going there with 7 youngsters. You want to build the experience. You're not always looking at towards with the cup. You want to build the experience for. I mean, you're building towards the next World Cup. Now, if we look at it this year for the women's team, obviously you took over after Lenny Buerta after the World Cup. You guys finished 4th there, and now you take the cup, and now you got the end of year tournament. I would say the Nkosi Cup coming home tournament against Namibia and against the Irish women's. This is sort of a new era, I would say. Like you said, also Jess O'Connor now retiring, and then Lenny Buerta, you taking over. Is this a new era for women's indoor hockey, looking towards the next World Cup?
Yeah, I think it is, but I think also we've got to be aware that the next World Cup is scheduled for first week of Feb in 2025. Now, that's not a long time away. And I've looked at the schedule and I looked at the calendar. I said, well, what do we prioritize? So for us, the priority is obviously Africa Cup, which is scheduled for May, and then World Cup. And what we're trying to do up till then is we're trying to make sure that we give enough players international exposure so that instead of just having 12 players that we pick at the World Cup, we can potentially have 20 players that we can select from. And I think we've got the squad to do it. I have changed the way we are defending and then the way we are attacking from previously because of the players that we have and because of the way that I think we can go and win a World Cup. We're not going to the World Cup just to make up numbers. We proved at the last World Cup that we are there to compete, And as South Africans, indoor, we have got the player depth to be one of the best in the world. Now, obviously, there's a long way to go before we are there. Germany and the Netherlands and most of your Eastern Bloc countries like Austria, Poland, Czech Republic, they've always been the top indoor teams in the world. And we need to match that and be better if we want to go to a World Cup and win. So what we are doing now is we are taking risks. Like you said earlier with Malaysia, we're taking risks. Even now, we're bringing some players back. We're giving some players debuts. The Switzerland team that are going in the next couple, we're doing the same, so that we're not necessarily picking on performance, but you obviously need to be good enough to play in the national side. But we are giving players the exposure that needed, so that if there's a problem, then those players can step in. The other reason we've done it this way is that after our Africa Cup in May, I don't see the girls until possibly only early September, which is quite a long time away. So obviously we've got girls that are going to be writing exams. You'll have the USA University tournaments. You have the Auto IPT. So there's a lot of tournaments in between. There's another under 21 Junior Africa Cup qualifier for the next World Cup. So there's a lot going on. So I have to lopside this part of the year or this part of the season so that players can get the exposure. So by the time we get to September, I have a group of players that know exactly what style we want to play. They've incorporated the values of what we're trying to achieve from a behavior and from an attitude point of view, so that then we just focus on World Cup preparation. I mean, ideally, I would like to see them at least once a month from every month for the year building up to the World Cup. But the reality is we don't have the luxury to do that. Unfortunately, we don't have the funds to do that either. But so that's why I've structured the next couple of months the way we've done it, so that we can be as good as we can be in 2025. I think the next thing to think about is to try and then build a team for 2028, because we've still got a young team. If I look at our current captain, she's only 25 years old. Jess O'Connor played till she was 34. And indoors the type of game that you can play when you're older because of the space on the field. Experience counts a lot in indoor because of the areas you can hold. So there is that opportunity. And I think if I look at the group that we have, this group could still be the group in 2028, which for me is very positive. Whether they decide to stay around, a lot of these girls want to start families, want to move into different spaces. So we will lose players along the way. But yeah, that is a new era, and I think it's an era that I'm looking short term, but I'm looking also long term, because if we do well in 2025, I genuinely feel and I genuinely believe we can win the World Cup. We can win the Indoor World Cup if we put the right plans in place, if we make sure, if we get the funding that we need, and if we just behave and have the attitude of a team that we're not going to a World Cup. Typical South African, we go to a World Cup and we maybe celebrate sometimes when we, let's say instead of maybe we lost 5-0 before, but now we've only lost 2-1 or 2-0, we'll celebrate that. And I want to change that attitude, in that it's still not okay to lose to a team 2-0. It's still not okay to draw a game when you should have won. So we need to change that behavior, because a Dutch or a German team, when they play against another team that they should have won, will be angry then they've done it. So I think there's a long process that we need to follow over the next couple of years for us to be in that position. But I'm very, very positive that this new era has started the way it has.
No, I love that part where you said about their mentality, about, when losing 2-0, you're still losing at the end of the day. Would you say that lacked previously? The sort of switch on mentality, or the killer mentality, I would say?
I think that it stems down to a few things. I think as South Africans, we don't have a fully paid program where players are paid to play hockey for their country like other countries. If you look at the likes of India, the likes of Korea, China, those type of countries, they are staying in a 365-day year. They stay together for about 280 days a year. They are literally staying together as a team. They train twice a day, but they are together all the time. We don't have that. So when we do get to a tournament and we have good results, so I'll just use an example of Olympics. If we go to Olympics and we draw to a team that we never knew we could, or we go to a team we play against, I know the South African men's team, I think, drew to Great Britain in London in 2012, drew to all. Now, we all celebrated that as a good result, But that's a good result because of where we've come from. We don't have the funds. We don't have the much training time. So that is a good celebration. I do understand that because of where we've come from. But I think we do need to shift it now because our men have showed that they can compete with the best in the world. They beat Germany in that last game or one of the games at the Olympics, and that's a celebration. And we need to get to that stage where it's no longer okay just to lose games. Now, I know losing is definitely part of it. It's how we behave after that that I think is important. We sadly lost to Austria first game of the Indoor World Cup. I felt that it was a game that we could have won, but again, it was almost like it was okay. And I'm thinking, but it's not okay, because that game in the end meant that we ended up playing Netherlands in the semi-final, where we could have potentially been playing Czech Republic in the semi-final. I mean, there's a big difference between those two teams. So that type of mentality has to change, and I think we do have that mentality because I think we're starting to get to a level to say that it's not okay to be. Like I say, it's the losing is part of the game, and losing's going to happen somewhere along the line. How we react to that and how we behave after that is the important part.
It really sounds like you. It really sounds like you're the right man for the job, I must say, listening to you speak now. Like you said, you're building a team now, looking towards 2025, and then obviously looking further after that. People might leave, but you're blooding the team. Let us know on your appointment now. Obviously, you are part of the team. You're integral part of the team. Did you know that opportunity was coming your way for the head coach role, or did it just like shock you a bit?
It did shock me a little bit because I remember I chatted to Lenny about it, and Lenny said after the World Cup that he's going to carry on. And given the time frame from the Feb 2023 to the next World Cup, it made sense then that he's there. Just carry on. I mean, for me. And then obviously the application's open. I wasn't going to apply for it because I just thought, well, if Lenny's going to be there, I'm just going to stay in my zone as assistant coach, and I'm very happy with that. And then I just thought, Lenny was then, listen, I don't know. And then I thought, well, let me just throw my name into that. I applied then for the head coach role and the assistant coach role. And the reason I did that is because if the head coach role didn't fill in, I could then still slot in. So when I did get the phone call, I was surprised because I thought they would keep it the same. But yeah, I was surprised, but also honored to take the reins after Lenny, because I know he had done such an amazing job over the years to grow, especially ladies indoor hockey to where it was.
So with that short turnaround for 2025, you're now looking at your team. Is there one aspect or one direction you really want to highlight? Because I mean, the medals are within reach. We finished fourth. It's we're knocking on the door. Is there one aspect of the team that you identified now and you'd be like, this is what we really got to focus on? I feel like this is going to pull us to the next level.
I think one of the big things, and it's very difficult to pinpoint, but one of the big things is adaptability. Indoor is a game that you need to adapt to situations way quicker than an outdoor game. And almost players need to start making decisions on the field for themselves for what they see in front of them. You're playing inside an indoor facility that's, at the World Cup, we had close to 4,000 people. It's loud. You can't get messages across to the players. But because the game is so quick and things happen so quickly, we've got to be adaptable. So one of the things that we are trying to do in training is adapt to different scenarios on the fly, so we almost try and create these chaos situations where players have got to make decisions very quickly. And at the moment, you would have seen from Malaysia, we weren't as slick as we wanted to be, but that's because we've started throwing in these scenarios in training where players are like all over the show and then trying to make a decision of what they see in front of them. So that's the one thing, is we need to be a lot more adaptable. I think we're still very stuck in setting our ways in the way we coach provincially. And I'm starting to engage with a lot of provincial coaches now and showing them what we're going to do as a national team. They don't have to copy it. They don't have, but they need to know what we're doing so that when players get pulled into the national side, they're aware of the styles that we're trying to play.
It sounds like you're now entrusting the players to make their decision rather than focusing on just, this is the structure you got to play and you got to stick to the structure. Now you're really entrusting them, and then you're bringing all these players together, but now it's becoming sort of second nature. Is that am I understanding you correctly?
Yeah, and we almost need to. I need to put any five onto the field, and there's a blueprint of how we want to play. There's definitely a blueprint that we always default to, but I've allowed the players that, told them, I said, if you make a decision, if you need to make a decision or divert from the plan, on the field, go ahead. But if I ask you afterwards why you've done that and you don't have a valid reason for it, then they'll be held accountable for it. But if a player says, listen, because of X, Y, and Z, we went to A, B, and C, then I'm like, all good, because essentially they're the ones that are going to roll it out. I'm just need to, as a head coach, need to give them the tools to make those decisions. And I think it's important because we've got so many dynamics, the amount of dynamic players we have in our team that can do things off on the fly, who can change games. We've got a lot of them in South Africa, and we've got quite a few in our squad at the moment. And for me to put them in a box and say, you can only do this, just is not good for them as a player. And I think, and I say this very carefully, but I'm also not shy to say this. We do that as South Africans. We've got a certain way that we want to play, so we stick to that. And I don't mind that. But we've got to allow the players to be able to make a lot of decisions for themselves and then guide them along the way. Because if a player can make a decision and they can justify their decision, then that's fine. Go ahead and do it. If they've made the wrong decision, then that's where a coach comes in. That's where video analyzing comes in afterwards, and you can give them the guidance they need for that. But I'm very much for it. I do understand that there are scenarios where, for instance, when we played against the Netherlands at the World Cup, there was a certain defensive style we had to play. We couldn't play any other way because of how good the Dutch were at breaking into small little spaces. So we had to take away a little bit of the freedom from the players, but we needed to do that to end up getting a result. We unfortunately didn't get the result in the end, but there's a few scenarios where that does happen, and we'll have it over the couple of years. And there might be a scenario where we're 2-1 up against a team that is way stronger than us. We're going to have to take that attacking freedom away from and say, listen, we've got to sit and defend a certain way, and then we move forward, for example. So there will be scenarios like that, but 100% I want to give the players the responsibility to make those decisions where they can. And again, they'll be held accountable when decisions don't go the right way. And I always say, go and make the mistake, because you need to learn from the mistake. But you can't hold back, because when you start doubting yourself, that's when problems happen. We had one of our players who missed a penalty a shootout in Malaysia. And she came to me and she said she doubted, and she said she understood, she realized that she mustn't doubt it. If she can accept that, she's learned from it. I can tell you now, when she has a shootout again, she's not going to miss, because she's learned from that. And those are the type of things, and that's why we'll lose some games because we make mistakes. We'll lose some games over the next couple of months because we're trying new things. And I want the players to do that, because that's the only way they learn. And we've got so many new players that don't have enough experience. I've got a person like Jamie Southgate, 81 test matches for a country. She knows at the moment, because she's played so long and she's got the experience, she knows what she can and she cannot do on a field. We've been given her some new roles, which she's a bit nervous to do, but we've given her some new roles, and she looks at it and she does it and she learns from it straight away. Whereas another player like Malika Hamza, who's really good on the ball, she's now learning. She's made a mistake here, made a mistake there. She starting to figure out, with the experience that she's gaining, this is what I can and cannot do. There are certain things you can and cannot do on an indoor court. So that's why we're doing this, by splitting this team evenly over the next couple of months, to give them that sort of exposure to make those decisions and make the proper informed decisions that they need to on a field.
Stepping away from, I would say, the indoor women's side now for a bit, you involved in, I wouldn't say just indoor women's, you involved with SA hockey in general. You the field hockey, you the women's indoor, you involved with PSI. We see you on Supersport doing commentating. I mean, come on. Let's talk about the coaching and the managing for a bit. How did you get into it? But how did you get into it that you got to such a high level? Because many people do it, but not many get to the level that you at.
So interestingly, it started in 2003. So I matriculated 04. So 2003 was my grade 11 year. At that stage, I was doing crazy sports. I was a 400 meter hurdler. I was in a bigger Western Province cricket squad for the following year. I was also playing hockey at a high level. And in the last week of school, we used to have these sports events, just to, at the last week of school, kids don't want to go to school. There's nothing. So I was at Settlers High School. And what they did was they created all these sporting events in the last week. They actually made the last week of school really fun. I mean, instead of staying at home, we could have gone and played some soccer or whatever. And I played I just ran in a 400 meter hurdles race. I think it was the Friday evening. at Belleville Athletics Track, and I qualified as a in the Western Province qualifying time to go to SA Champs. All I needed to do then was just run all the races I needed to run in the following year to qualify. The Monday we had the Monday we had a sport event. We had a sevens rugby game, and I didn't play rugby, but we played in it, and I ended up tearing my ACL on that day, and that was my sporting career for basically the majority of my matric year done. And I mean, obviously, I was in tears for a long time because I couldn't care about schoolwork. I was more worried about sport. That was me. And I torn my ACL, and it was set up to be one of my best sporting years that just went down the drain. And then that opened up my coaching career. I had a coach, Mr. Koo Jonker. He's now retired. He invited me to become umpire for the under 14 boys at Settlers, and then I got to coach one of the under 16B side. So that started more the managerial side and the more off-field things that, for me. From then, I then moved into umpiring, and then from umpiring, I went into the tournament directing side of things, where I was a tournament director for under 16 and 18 IPT for South African schools hockey for many years. From there, moved into positions in senior hockey, where I was umpiring at senior tournaments, umpiring at under 21s, USA, various tournaments. And I was very fortunate enough to get called up to the Africa Cup hockey tournament in Egypt in 2017. That was a World Cup qualifier at that point to be a technical official. So that's where it really started. And then obviously with COVID, all the matches were starting to be streamed. And then I got phone calls to say, listen, don't you mind coming and commentating for a little bit? At that point, I had done a little bit of MC work, announcing at some events, and had moved into that, not really moved into the space formally, but because I obviously knew the sport quite well, I could arrive at a tournament if they needed me to announce teams or whatever. I could do that. So that I did one of those in Pretoria, and then it started just flowed into where people would phone me and say, "Listen, can you MC at a school event for us?"
Being a coach of a national team or national side, there's a lot of pressure I would understand that comes with it. Mentally, how tough is it? How tough is it mentally? Or what's the toughest part mentally? Is it the pressure to perform? Is the pressure of, if I gotta get the victories, but I also gotta blood the youngsters. You know what I mean?
Mm. It's a fine balance. As South Africans, we want results straight away. We see it in everything we do. I think the biggest thing is obviously pressure from a results point of view. I think we're going to see it a lot more now in Nkosi Cup than we saw it in Malaysia. And it's not because the teams are weak or strong. It's just a different tournament. The players are playing in front of their families. They're playing in Wynberg Military Base, which is a lot smaller than some of the venues we've played at. The crowd is literally next to the court. 1,500, 2,000 people that could potentially be in there. So the pressures are really hard. I think that's one thing, is definitely the pressure from results. But also, I like to engage with spectators and fans often to give them an understanding of what we're trying to achieve. And once people start to understand that, they'll realize that there's a very, very big long-term goal here. I think one thing that has taught me to deal with many different scenarios is when I coached PSI when I was younger, there were scenarios where I had 8 girls would arrive to trials, and that's the 8 girls we take to trials to the tournament. So I'd learned in those scenarios to not worry too much about what's happening in the background, because I'm going to be under a lot of pressure. I mean, I don't think I've scratched the surface of the amount of pressure that I've been under yet, because obviously it's just started. But I think as long as I'm staying true to what we're trying to achieve as a team, staying true to our values as a team, and being honest and fair with the process that we follow, I think that managing that expectation will be good. As long as I've got the supporters understand what we're trying to achieve, the players have a clear understanding of what I want, I have a clear understanding of what a player is going through, then the pressure seems a little bit less sometimes. But I think for me, to answer the question is definitely the pressure of results, because when we got Nkosi Cup is a very important tournament in South Africa because it's a big tournament. But in the bigger scheme of it, which is more important, the World Cup or Nkosi Cup, so you got to juggle all these different things and manage the expectations of sponsors, of players. So that is a tough part. And obviously, when I was younger, I always listened to what other people said. When it was negative things, I took it to heart, and I couldn't deal with it. Now I listen to it, I take in the information that I want to know. If I don't agree with it, I throw it away one side and I just carry on with my life. But I think that's just life experience that's taught me that. But I'm very respectful of the crowd and the country and the people that are supporting us. There is pressure to perform because they are supporting us so well. You know, they really are. They're behind us 24/7. The amount of messages we got after Malaysia made me realize how many people have eyes on this team. You know, we out of all the hockey teams in the country at the moment, we're the highest ranked of the South African teams, whether it be outdoor, indoor, whatever. And that's difficult to maintain. It's going to be hard, and it was always going to be pressure on me to perform after what Lenny did with the team. Lenny had done so well; his winning record was unbelievable. Fourth at the World Cup, when we've never reached a semi-final in any of the big World Cup events, is huge. So to try and match that and get better is a massive pressure. So I do think that is really hard. But also I'm making sure that I block out. I mean, when somebody gives constructive criticism of the team, I don't block it out. I listen to it, I take in what it is, and then I move on. I use it, don't use it, but I don't dwell on it. And I think I've learned that. And I need to keep reminding myself that, but I don't dwell on those type of things. But I do think that the pressure of results is something that is a very South African thing. You know, when the Springboks lose, the country loses their mind when they lose. But when they win, you know, it's sadly, you know, when we have different thoughts when the cricket team or Bafana lose. You know, it's weird how the country works. But when we lose, it's always bad. So I also want to change that narrative and for people to understand that there's a longer process. If we go to Nkosi Cup and we lose all the games at Nkosi Cup, the priority, yes, is to try and obviously win this tournament, but we need to look at the performance of the team and understand that once that gets right, we will get to a point where winning becomes a habit, and that if we continue winning, so be it. It's all good. I mean, I'm not going to complain about that, but I think it's important that people understand where the team is, what we're trying to achieve. And so then at least then from that point of view, the pressure is not so bad. But I also like the pressure because it means it keeps us on our toes. We need to keep innovating as staff. You know, we won't tell anybody about it now, but we did two or three innovative things on our series in Malaysia that we'll share with the country at a later stage. I just don't want to give those trade secrets away to any other country at the moment. But when some of the players hear this, they'll probably have a good chuckle as well, because it's quite small, but it was something that definitely made a big difference to the team. We've also got a team doing a documentary during Nkosi Cup to document a three-part documentary of that. So hopefully that's going to give some insight into what we're trying to achieve, and also proper behind-the-scenes, unedited footage of us just trying to be the best national team that we can be.
I love that. Like you said, there's a lot of pressure under it. But it sounds like you guys are really, really up for it, and it sounds like there's a sort of like the new era. But it sounds like there's a turning point, realizing the true potential that we hold. For somebody who's now probably listening and who wants to be a coach or has the aspirations to do that, or to just do it at a high level and make a living for yourself, what is one tip that you give them?
I think the first thing is to try and find a mentor, somebody that's in a position above you. So for me, I was very fortunate that Jade Hearn, who's the director of sport at Pinelands High School, he's a former national player. He was my coach at Belleville Hockey Club for a few years. He was coaching the Boland Foxes under 18 PSI team. He stopped coaching, and then Bruce Jacobs came to me and said, listen, are you interested? I would like you to take over the team. So that's the PSI team that I've coached all the years at PSI. And at that point, I then went to a few people to try and get some, just to learn from them. So I think the first thing is, if you're a young coach and wanting to move up, find somebody that's maybe coached at a higher level or a little bit more experienced and shadow them for a little bit. I was fortunate. I spent some time overseas, literally just observing, taking in. And I've done that with many other coaches. The second thing I would do is find another coach that you can share ideas with. So maybe this is somebody different. Now, when I was coaching at PSI, David Joshua and Shane Cormack. Now, Shane Cormack, funnily enough, we have a good chuckle about this. She's the new Namibian ladies coach. We've coached against each other since 2007. She was coaching Namibian Hawks and I was coaching Boland. And David Joshua was coaching the Gauteng Griffin side. Another person was Ryan Pillay. Ryan Pillay coached the SEALs. So the four of us, even at the tournament, we're competing again in this really super intense, high pressure tournament with unbelievable players that we're coaching. We would sit after the game and we would challenge each other. And that's how we all grew. We all challenged us like, why did you do that? Why couldn't you do this? And then I started realizing, well, he's asked me that question. I can't actually answer that. So it means I've got to go and rethink how I do things. So I think by getting a coach that you can that can challenge you will just make you so much better. At the moment, we do have, and sadly, I say this very, very sadly, that we've got coaches who are keeping things within themselves that really don't want to share. And we are all trying to do one thing. We are trying to produce hockey players to play for our country. We are trying to win tournaments. We are trying to be the best country that we can be at hockey. So by us competing and trying to hold things to each other, and listen, I'm not expecting people to share trade secrets of how we do certain things, but just to share ideas of how do you coach this, how do you coach that. I'm very happy to share video footage of my team because it's I can give you as an opposition coach video footage. The key is how you use the video footage, not the video footage itself. You know, I do know at a higher level it's a different story. Maybe when the guy's looking at Olympics because they don't want to give anything away. But I would say then that young coach needs to find a mentor that can help them along the way, and then find another coach, maybe a friend of yours, and share ideas with them.
But it seems like you love to push yourself out your comfort zone. Like I said earlier, I asked you this morning, do you like, if you ran, if you swam, or if you cycled, you do triathlons, you do Ironmans, you do marathons, like bro, what, like, you blew your ACL, okay? Did now tell me, where did the interest of coming and doing marathons and triathlons? Because nobody wakes up one morning and decides, you know what, I'm gonna try and go for a triathlon in 3 months. Nobody, that's not a normal thought, okay? Where did that interest come from? Was it like maybe like a life shift that maybe pushed you into that direction, or what?
So quite interestingly, it started in 2013. So John McEnroy, who was the founder of Red Sox Friday, is a good friend of mine. We played hockey against each other. He's also the MC. He was the MC at the Indoor Hockey World Cup. We were looking, I was a school teacher at Fairmont at that stage, and I was coaching the first team boys hockey. And at that point, just before that, for context, my sister had asked us, AJ, are we going to do 2 Oceans Half Marathon? And I'm like, no, we can't. Listen, I've just run a 10K. I don't think it's that cool, you know. This is September 2013. No, sorry. This is September. September 20. Where are we now? September 2013. September 2012. So we deciding now, should we do it? Shouldn't I? Whatever. Because really, I wasn't. So September 2012, I get asked by the school, listen, do you know anybody that can do be a guest speaker at our Winter Sports Awards? So I said, yeah, I have someone. He's an old SA hockey player, but he started Red Sox Friday. He started the Unogwaja Challenge. I didn't know immediately what Unogwaja Challenge was because this is quite an important part of who I am. And he said, listen, and I asked him, he said, yes, I'm going to come. I'm going to speak about Unogwaja. And I'm like, I've heard about it. Let me find out. So Unogwaja Challenge is a 10-day cycle from Cape Town to Pietermaritzburg. And on the 11th day, you run the Comrades. So I introduced John at the awards, and I then sat down. He showed the video of the Unogwaja Challenge first. And I sat there and I looked at this, and literally that was the moment that my sporting journey, my journey into marathons and triathlons started. I watched this thing and I'm like, there was no hesitation. I'm like, I want to do that. There wasn't, and this is a person who I was very comfortable with. I didn't even run I only did whenever my hockey coach told me, listen, just go for a run. I only ran with a team. I didn't go do a 5K run in my own time. I wasn't ill-disciplined. I just didn't feel I needed to because I thought I was fit enough. Meanwhile, I'm looking at an event that's 1,700 kilometer cycle over 10 days through some of the roughest terrain, mountains that you can go over, and then to run arguably, in my opinion, the best race in the world, which is the Comrades Marathon. And I sat there and I'm like, there was no doubt I'm doing this. The next morning, I entered Comrades with no experience whatsoever. Entered Comrades. I hadn't, and to give context, the furthest I'd run was Gun Run 10K, which was the year before, and my longest training run, because I didn't know anything about running. I didn't know that you have to do speed work. I didn't know you had to do long runs. I didn't know that there's tempo runs. I knew nothing. All I knew was I could play hockey, and I could play cricket, and I could run around a track over hurdles. That's all I knew. I didn't know anything about it.
And you were like, yeah, no, I'm gonna do 42K. Boom.
Yeah. So I saw this thing and I'm like, I'm doing it. And then I went home that night and for about 2-3 hours, I sat researching looking. I knew Comrades, obviously, as it was on years ago, it was on my birthday. On the 16th of June, there was a period where it was on. So I used to wake up every morning on my birthday, super excited it's my birthday. Only thing on TV in that time of the morning is the Comrades Marathon. So we used to watch it in and out, and then we used to watch the last hour. So Comrades was always a thing. It was always something, but my mind couldn't conceptualize what Comrades was. I mean, 89 kilometers through the Durban Maritzburg hills is stupid if you think about it, but it's the best race ever. So I researched it. I checked what I needed to do. So I then entered Comrades. I think the Comrades entries opened a couple of days after that event. I then also entered the Unogwaja Challenge as a participant. They were only going to pick 12 riders. And then I started my very first race when I started was after training was the Sundowner 10K. It happens at the waterfront in Cape Town, roughly 17, 18 December. And that was my first, called the Growth Point Sundowner 10K. That was my first ever race then through this journey. And then since then, once I finished my first Comrades, and Unogwaja was hard, was super hard. It was the most I'd ever cycled. Never cycled before as well. Needed a new bike. My bike was too big for me. The bike I lent was too big for me. I then got sponsored a bike a week before. It was crazy. It was really, I started training 1st of December. My first race was 10th of December. My first half marathon was mid-Jan, which was the Kloofneck half marathon. That was my first one. My first marathon was Peninsula Marathon, end of February. And then my first ultra was, I think that year it was end of March, was Two Oceans Ultra. So all in the space, which I don't recommend to anyone. I do not recommend that to anyone because you do need a lot more time to train, but it's not impossible. So I did that. But in my mind, I was so set on this, I'm going to do this. In my head and in my heart, I was going to do this, that nothing was going to stop me. There was a lot of people that told me, oh, no, do it. You can't run at your age. You're going to hurt your knees. I don't have knee issues. Ever since my thing, I haven't had any issues. I've been very blessed that I haven't had injuries while I've been running. And then after Unogwaja and after Comrades, I did Comrades for a little bit. There was one thing that was still stopping me from taking it to the next level, and that was my fear of water. I hated swimming. Swimming was just not a thing. If I got into a pool, I'll be sitting on the side of the pool, body in, but I'll be holding onto the edge because I was too scared. I had this super, super fear of water. So I then ended up doing duathlons, and I was starting doing duathlons quite well because it was run and cycle. I started cycling a lot more. And I got to a point where I thought, I started giving talks at schools about Unogwaja Challenge and what it's about. And I kept encouraging people to get out their comfort zone. And one day it just dawned on me. I said, I'm saying these things, but I'm not living it. And I watched Ironman, and I knew that I had the ability to do Ironman because of Comrades. Because if I can endure 11, 12 hours of pain during Comrades, I have the mentality to do Ironman. But I just obviously needed to train properly. So then I did my first swim was in 2016. 2017 was my last. 2017 was my last Comrades. I then decided, now I'm going to start shifting across. Now I want to do it. So I started swimming. I did one swimming session. I still look at this. It's a crazy picture. I took a picture of my goggles and my swimming cap. I was at Virgin Active in Constantia. Virgin Active in Claremont. And I started my swim at, I think it was 5:30 in the morning. And I was sitting there thinking, what the heck am I doing here? This is stupid. This is just the dumbest thing ever. And Cara Lee, who was my swimming instructor then, I decided, listen, AJ, I've driven all the way from Belleville to Claremont to do the swim. Just go do it. I mean, what's the worst that could happen? I can stand up in the pool. I won't drown, or hopefully not. So then I walk out. So first I take the picture and I put it on Instagram. I said, fine, leave the phone, put it back. And I walk out, and Cara's in a bathing costume as well. I'm like, okay, did I got my times wrong or whatever? So no, she said, no, I'm going to jump in the water with you. So I'm like, okay, so how's this going to work? So then she jumped in with me, and she just helped me because I told her, I said, listen, I got no frame of reference. I don't know how to swim. It's not. So she helped me. First day, we just did some extra breathing. I mean, again, putting the head under the water was something that I wasn't used to. So we did a couple of things like that. 2 weeks later, after 3 or 4 swims a week, I'm swimming easily 2Ks a training session. And I'm like, this is not normal. And it then follows the trend of me doing stupid things along the way. And then I ended up doing my first triathlon. Was the Cape Ultra. It was the Cape Ultra event, but I did the sprint event. I came out right at the back in the water, a 600-meter swim, but it took me forever. I don't know. I think I was one of the last few people in the out of the water. And there's a strange picture of me walking out, taking off my wetsuit, and it was super cold. It was like freezing that day. Got onto the bike, cycled, and I caught up to some people because I was used to cycling. I'd obviously done a lot of cycling at that point. And then when I started running, the running was comfortable. It's not easy running, getting off the bike, but it was something I was naturally doing. So my run time and my bike time was pretty good. And that followed the trend over the last couple of years of me doing triathlons, of obviously not being a great swimmer. I've worked a lot and I've done a serious amount of work for it. And that's why I was as disappointed. There were some races I did where swims were shortened and that, but I put a lot of effort into it. And swimming, I actually really enjoy now. I love going out to the pool. I still don't swim super fast, but I've accepted that. It's just what it is. I just put in the work. Whatever happens with the training afterwards, I do. The cycling has become a really strong portion of my triathlon, because that was a portion that I struggled a lot with. The run, I could never capitalize on the run because my cycle was always weak. So I would overbike, or I'll try too hard and my legs were completely smashed. I couldn't run properly. So when I did Ironman in PE, end of 2021, the one that was delayed like 4 or 5 times, I actually could run really well. I was having an absolute ball. Obviously, the last 10Ks, the last lap, you get to lap 3 and you still got to run the whole promenade of PE again and to the finish. I was like, oh my goodness, I can't do this. And then the legs go from feeling really good to like really, really hard.
Spaghetti. Spaghetti.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's how the run's been. That's how my Ironman journey's been, and it's been a truly special journey because ever since Unogwaja, I believe I can. It's not I believe I can do anything. I believe anything's possible. And that's carried me into coaching and made me a stronger coach because I know what's possible. I've also people can look at me as an example and say, "Cheapers, AJ's done that after not having any experience in any of this." And yet he can still achieve that. And I want people to look at that and take inspiration. It's not about looking at it and saying, oh, just congratulate AJ because he did well. It's about, I'm not winning races. I'm not a professional. I'm not earning money from it. I want people to see that it is possible when you put your mind and your heart to it. I know it's cliche, but it is possible when you just have the drive to be it. I've got a girl that's playing at Nkosi Cup this week. She said she dreamt from the time she was under 13 to play at PSI in national kit in front of the PSI players. And she now gets to do that. So I just think that my life has been, one of the quotes that I live by is, my life is a message to the world, make it inspiring, and for me, the triathlon and Ironman journey and Unogwaja journey that I've been on since 2012, it really is testament to that. And I hope people, at least one person, can take some sort of inspiration from it to live their life in a way that they would like to, or follow the dreams that they want to do.
When people do these activities, they do the running or they do the cycling or they do the swimming, they spend the extra time, they spend the extra hours to do that. They find things about themselves, and it really seems like you found, or I'll say your character developed over time, and that's what these stars do. And hopefully next time you race Bonga, you can redemption.
Yeah. Listen. Yeah. No. So it has taught me a lot, and I've learned a lot about myself in tough scenarios. That saying about diamonds under pressure. It was definitely. Has taught me a lot. It's taught me resilience. I've always been, and my sister told me this a while back. She's 6 years older than me, and I used to, like she said, I bullied her when I was younger, but I didn't bully her. I think I was just that young brother that wanted to play with her older sister. And she said that one thing that I did when I was younger, and I didn't realize this. She said I was quite, I was always had this never say die attitude, never give up, and I always found a way to make things work, and I think that's helped me in this hockey space as well, because we're in a space where funding is really lacking. We're very, very, very grateful to SPAR, who's our headline sponsor that gives us cash a year. We've got to make it work. Unfortunately, we do need more. So, that's helped me to like figure out how do we make things work here and there. It's also helped me as a coach on the field, like how do we problem solve on the field. So I think I think I've always had it. I think the triathlon journey and the marathon journey has brought that out, and made me realize that it is a strength of mine, to be able to problem solve the way I do.
Now, looking at 2024, you just mentioned Spa, and you mentioned the funding and what, and the next World Cup. I mean, like I said earlier, the medals are within reach. You got the Netherlands, you got Germany, you got Austria. We are there. How do we ensure that we have a healthy, how can I say, a conveyor belt of athletes coming through the school system that will help us in the future, or just better us in the future, because we have a bright future? How do we ensure that conveyor belt of talent continues?
So what I've done now, so what I've first of all done with the provincial coaches, we've identified, and it's not formal, but we've identified some younger players at under 17, under 18 level that have been invited, that I've gone to provincial coaches and I said, you've got your high performance centers, and this is specifically for indoor, and we've invited those younger players into each program. So I've got a couple of youngsters in the Western Cape where I look after the SA players. Here, Calvin Price, who's my assistant coach, he looks after the KZN area. So the KZN area is a big area for indoor hockey because they've got a very formal league, a lot of indoor hockey going. So a lot of those younger players are now playing alongside our national players. So at least from that point of view, from a provincial point, we've got players flowing through. The next plan, and I know that this is not completely rubber stamped yet, but the next plan is to pick a South African under 16 and a South African under 18 team at PSI. Now, PSI, everybody in my team, including myself, Calvin, and Tracy Flowers, who's our manager, have all come through the PSI ranks. Tracy owns the Mpumalanga Mambas franchise. Every player that I have there has played PSI somewhere along the line. And we then, with SA Schools and with Simon at PSI, they've come to some sort of agreement. Like I said, it's not confirmed just yet. Come to some sort of agreement that they pick an SA under 16 and an SA under 18 boys and girls team, with the view of potentially taking the SA under 18 team to play in February, end of February, March, to play in the senior men's and ladies interprovincial tournament. So at least from that point of view, we're now picking national players that can flow through. Indoor hockey, the problem with it is obviously the player base is smaller, but it is such an exciting part of it. It's massive in the country. There's a serious amount of players. So I think from that point of view, that's the start of us flowing through and getting players into the system. The next procedure is, I would ideally, and hopefully funding dependent, this can work. We can pick an under 21 team or an under 20 side. At the moment, we won't necessarily have a completely new, there'll be players crossing over senior team and under 21. But in future, I want to be able to create the depth where we can pick an SA under 21 team that can maybe go and travel once a year, travel to Europe and play against the under 21 indoor teams there, because they have an under 21 Euro champs and various tournaments. So, and then what we can do is we can realign then everyone so that those under 21s know that the next step for them is to play seniors. And the next step is then to go into to play. So then we don't lose players along the way. I don't want us to lose the under 18 players that are all playing at PSI. I don't want us to only have, out of, let's say there's 400 players, I don't want only 100 players to come through. We would like more than that to come through. At the moment, we don't have a lot of them coming all the way through into the provincial structures. And I think the pressure's on provincial unions to have proper indoor leagues. I think Western Province has now got it right. I know Northern Gauteng and Southern Gauteng have got a league going as well. KZN's got their league going. The more we have those leagues, the better.
Before we wrap up, like, we've gone through this episode now, and I mean, you're a man of, I don't know how you have the time, to be honest. I really don't know how you have the time to do everything. Because I mean, you're now coaching, you're now commentating. Well, I don't know if you're commentating now anymore, but then you got the triathlons, you got the marathons. You're busy all over. There must be some piece of guidance or advice that you hold in your head for when times are tough. What is there anything such as that?
I think for me, it's just stay true to what you believe. I think what drives me, and what when things got really hard, I just believe deep down. I go back to me as a person and what my values are, and and that reminds me, when things are really hard, and I will say the last 3 weeks has been tough trying to manage a whole lot of things. I take a step back. I always take a step back, and I'll just take a deep breath and say, AJ, what do you believe in? What do you love? And then I keep reminding myself, but this is what I love. And they said, okay, well, that's what you do, So I think it's very important that you stay true to that, and you do the things you love. I'm very, very fortunate that I'm doing the things I love. I love being around people. I love socializing with people. I love meeting new people. Being in a team environment for me is the ultimate. It's the best dream ever, just for me. But there's also times where I take a step back and I'm in my own space, and I'm very happy to be in my own space. I've traveled. My friend asked me one day, I traveled overseas on my own. He's like, what are you doing? So I said, well, I enjoy it, So there are times where for me, I just look at where I am in my life, and the family that I have around me, the support system, the people that I get to mix with, the girls that are in the indoor team, the girls that are in the outdoor team, the staff members and everybody around. And I just think of those people. And that's one of the reasons why I do this, is to make it better for those people. So whenever things get rough, I just take a step back. I think of the things that I love doing. I think of the values that keep me driven. And I just take a step back. I don't wallow in self-pity for too long, because that's also not great. But I take the time to mope about it. I then get back into believing in the things that I believe, and then I move forward from there.
Thank you so much, AJ, for doing this. I mean, so I'm sitting here and listening to you, and listening to your vision for the team, and your vision for not just the team, but just general hockey in South Africa. And I mean, you spoke about the coaches. It sounds like you, like I said earlier, you really are the right man for the job. And I just wish you all the best, especially with the Nkosi Cup coming up now in December. I might be around there because I'm working for Tech Tables. I might be around there.
Lovely.
So I might be around. We'll see you there. But I wish you all the best. But before we leave, let the people know where they can find AJ on socials.
So I'm mostly on Instagram. I actually haven't seen my Facebook in a while, but Instagram, Mr. _AJ Sir. That's me on Instagram. I share a lot of interesting things on there, but yeah, that's just me. That's the life that I live. I like people to see exactly who I am, and not the nice things of social media, but the everyday things. So yeah, Instagram, that's where you can find me, on AJ SPIERINGSHOEK on Facebook, and then LinkedIn as well, AJ SPIERINGSHOEK. But yeah, and again, like, it's a message to all young coaches out there, the people that want some advice or need me to do something. I mean, I'm still learning. I actually, interestingly, I learned from an under 13 coach a couple of weeks ago. I saw something and I'm like, oh, he doesn't know it, but we've just picked this up. And so, yeah, so again, that's to just reach out. And yeah, thank you very much for having me. And thanks for the well wishes for Nkosi Cup. I know it's going to be one heck of a week, but I can't wait. And I know the girls are, I think there's a lot of excited girls that are really just can't wait to get on that plane to come to Cape Town.
And everybody who's in Cape Town, you guys got to come down. I think it's the 14th or the 15th or the 19th, Wynberg Military Base. 15th to the 19th, Wynberg Military Base, Nkosi Cup. That's going to be, I'll be there. It's going to be jam-packed. I'm going to love it. I'm going to see AJ. Hopefully AJ grabs a few victories, okay? No. But thank you so much, AJ, for coming on the podcast.